Hi everyone. So in this video I'm gonna lay out the 5 most common cardio mistakes that people make when trying to lose fat. Before we dive into the biggest pitfalls of cardio, let me clear out one thing. I love cardio, and it is fundamental to help you lose weight, but also for your overall health and improving life expectancy. But it has to be done in the right way. Contrary to what some gym bros might tell you, cardio does have some serious benefits. In fact, just look at the results of this 2009 meta-analysis. Just about every study favored high cardio fitness over low cardio fitness when it came to both all-cause mortality and coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. But it isn't just about health. Having better conditioning can also help with your training goals by improving overall work capacity and recovery in between sets. In fact, when your cardio is on point, you can get all that work done much more efficiently. It's also worth mentioning that physical activity is an important factor for long-term weight maintenance. Research shows that individuals who are more active tend to be more successful in keeping the weight off after a period of dieting. However, there is still a lot of misinformation around cardio and fat loss. So let's dig into some of the biggest mistakes that I see people make, and then I'll give some practical recommendations at the end to get the best results out of your cardio without spending tons of hours doing it. The first mistake is simply thinking that cardio is as effective for fat loss as being in a caloric deficit with a diet, which definitely isn't true. Even though being physically active is uncontroversially important for health, cardio isn't actually required for fat loss. In fact, weight loss is simply dictated by your energy balance. If you burn more calories than you eat, you'll lose weight. Cardio is a tool to help you create a deficit, so you don't have to restrict too much on what you eat. This is just to point out that you can't simply outwork a bad diet by doing cardio, so you have to have a good balance with your diet. You can't simply go out and eat 2 entire pizzas and then think that you'll just need to run more the next day to burn it off. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. In fact, it definitely is much easier to eat calories than it is to burn calories, but it's actually worse than that because new research shows that when you do it, the math, weight loss from cardio still only amounts to 20 to 50% of the weight loss you'd expect to see from the number of calories burned alone. In other words, if you burned 2,500 calories over the course of a week through cardio and did nothing with your diet, you'd expect to lose about 0.7 pounds based on the math, but would only actually lose 0.14 to 0.36 pounds. But why that? Now, there are 2 possible reasons for this. The most likely is compensatory overeating. Basically, when people are told to just do cardio but don't do anything with their diet, they'll often subconsciously start eating more. The second reason is that your body is smart, and when it notices that you're burning more calories through cardio, it tries to preserve more energy by burning less calories through the other metabolic components. Now, it isn't perfectly clear exactly which component of metabolism is most responsible for this, but some evidence points toward it being due to reductions in NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, basically your regular daily activities like moving around your house, doing chores, etc. So, it could be that as you increase the number of calories that you burn through exercise, your body subconsciously starts moving around less, resulting in fewer calories burned. So the point here is that you can't rely solely on cardio for fat loss, but you also need to pay attention to the overall daily calorie intake and make sure it's negative, otherwise you won't lose weight. I make this mistake number 1 because you have to understand that you can't set unrealistic expectations about what cardio can do. Cardio, it's great, but it is not some secret magic that will melt away your fat. Cardio is a tool to help you stay in the calorie deficit you firstly create through a proper nutrition plan. The second mistake is poorly timing cardio around weight training. In fact, one of the most important things to consider with cardio is whether or not it's likely to impair your weight training performance, something referred to as the dreaded interference effect. But don't worry, this is easily solved, and I'll shortly tell you how. So, the simplest way to resolve this interference is just by doing your cardio at the end of your training session. However, don't forget to properly warm up your muscle and joints before weight training. A 5 to 10 minute light cardio, like walking on the treadmill, has been shown to improve subsequent weight training performance. But your cardio session, one longer than 10 minutes, should be done either after weights or at a separate time. Altogether, this 2017 systematic review and meta-analysis on concurrent training, which pulled the results of 13 studies, found that placing cardio immediately before weights resulted in significantly worse improvements in 1 rep max strength, and that strength training is compromised for at least 6 to 8 hours following endurance training. Now, obviously the extent of that compromise depends on how long and how intense the endurance training is. But still, these authors suggest that separating endurance and resistance exercise by 24 hours, when realistic, could be a useful strategy to optimize concurrent training adaptations and avoid acute interference. However, I need to point out that the interference effect is more of a concern for advanced trainees than it is for beginners. This brand new 2021 meta-analysis found that concurrent cardio and weight training had no impact on strength for untrained and moderately trained individuals, but did significantly impair strength in more well-trained individuals. So, the practical solution are doing your cardio at the end of your training session, or instead, and when possible, do your lifting in the morning and then 6 to 8 hours later you can do your cardio. Or also you can separate cardio and weight training by one day, as research suggests. Next mistake. Believe that high-intensity cardio is the best way to lose weight. We all know that there are two forms of cardio: low-intensity steady-state, or LIS, or moderate-intensity steady-state cardio, called MIS. And on the other side we have high-intensity interval training, or HIIT cardio, which is when you go all out at a high exertion for 20-30 seconds or so, then go at a light pace for 2 to 3 minutes, and then repeat that for usually 5 or 6 intervals. Now a lot of people seem to think that HIIT is more effective at burning fat because of the so-called caloric afterburn effect or EPIC. While the afterburn effect certainly is real, you have to consider that high-intensity training is extremely hard and a lot of people aren't fit enough to properly follow a HIIT training, and therefore they may end up burning less calories because they have to rest more. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. If you prefer HIIT cardio to a 30-minute walk, then go for it. In the end, what matters is that you find an activity you enjoy and you find it sustainable. But also consider that the biggest downside of HIIT training is that it does tend to interfere with weight training more and takes longer to recover from. So, if you want to use HIIT training while also weightlifting, try to use one or max 2 sessions of HIIT training in your week. Mistake number 4 is doing too much cardio overall. Even if we do everything else right in terms of timing and intensity, it is still possible to do too much cardio. To give us some idea on this, let's take a look at the results of this meta-analysis on the interference effect. When it came to cardio frequency, they noticed a drop-off in hypertrophy around the 3 to 4 day per week zone. Although to be clear, the correlation wasn't that strong. So while this is a trend to be aware of, it isn't like your muscle is gonna melt away if you do cardio more than 3 or 4 times a week. They also showed negative correlations between hypertrophy strength and power and the length of endurance exercise per day, with more interference seen the higher you get above 30 minutes per day. Anyway, we have to consider the type of cardio you're doing. If it is just walking, the effect will be close to none. So, what I would recommend for cardio will be highly individual and depend on the type of cardio you're doing, and I'll break all that down here in a minute. First, let's quickly cover mistake number 5, which is banking on fasted cardio for extra fat loss. Now the bottom line with fasted cardio is that just because you will burn more fat during the session itself, doesn't mean that you'll lose more fat overall. In fact, this 2011 study found that when you burn more fat during a cardio session, you burn less fat over the next 24 hours. And this systematic review found that performing exercise in a fasted state did not influence weight loss or changes in lean and fat mass, and that a meaningful caloric deficit is more important than exercising in fasted or fed states. However, recently a review paper looked at the research on fasted cardio in the context of competitive physique athletes. Once again, they acknowledge that there is no conclusive evidence on the superiority of fasted cardio. Instead, it might be better to have at least some protein before cardio, because you can push harder, burn more calories, and still preserve your muscle mass. But at the end of the day, fasted or fed cardio doesn't make any difference at all. So, what are my practical recommendations? When it comes to volume, I suggest including cardio as needed to keep up with your desired pace of fat loss. Generally losing about 0.5 to 1 of your body weight per week is a good range. You could avoid doing cardio, but I personally suggest to incorporate at least some low-intensity steady-state cardio for health and training benefits purpose. Just do 150 minutes of cardio a week. It's not too much. It's 30 minutes of walking per 5 days. If you do something more intense, like bike riding or running, you can do less. Around 70 to 90 minutes per week will be fine. However, choose the form of cardio you enjoy the most and stick to it. Also, developing the habit of doing cardio is great for long-term weight maintenance after a fat loss, because cardio will help you stay lean. If you want to know more about diet and nutrition and why 95% of diets fail, check my nutrition book. I'll give you all the info you need to lose weight and keep it off for good. Hope you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share it with your friends. See you on the next one.